Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 31 here on the Alec Lewis Show, and I appreciate you guys being here. As always, it is Vikings talk, straight Vikings talk, nothing but it. That is what we marinate in, absorb in on a weekly, daily basis. So like to bring you guys that, as we always do early in the week. I'm going to have 5 thoughts for you, 5 little nuggets based upon film watching, numbers crunching, and conversations with people inside that building. So I'm looking forward to bringing you guys that. And appreciate you guys being here. If you don't know me, my name's Alec Lewis. I cover the Vikings for The Athletic and enjoy that every single week. If you missed it over on the website, theathletic.com, you can find a story that I wrote Sunday from the game. And then I wrote something for Tuesday morning about the way the Jaguars defended the Vikings. I think that was interesting. I found it interesting during the game and afterward, and I'm going to get into that a little bit as one of the 5 thoughts. But I'll just start with the trip to Jacksonville because, of course, you guys are here to know what it was like to go to Everbank Stadium and to watch that 12-7 victory. I don't know if you guys have been to Jacksonville. I'd be curious what you guys thought of it. I don't know if you guys are from Jacksonville or if you have family members or friends who live in Jacksonville. And if so, I hope they enjoy the heck out of their experience down there. All I know is the best thing that I saw in Jacksonville, beyond Byron Murphy's interception and Cam Bynum's interception that resulted in a celebration of sorts, is what you call it, from Cam Bynum, where he mimicked the ray gun dance from the Olympics. Other than that, the best thing I saw in Jacksonville was the Jaguars mascot. His or her name is Jackson DeVille, and this mascot it's as good as it gets. And I really think, frankly, it is the best thing that Jacksonville has. There is an amusement park near Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville where the team plays. That looked pretty fun, but I'm not really a roller coaster type of guy. Other than that, again, the mascot was exceptional before the game. And this might've been the most interesting aspect of the whole game, of the whole atmosphere, game experience. And this includes press box and food and all that stuff. This mascot, this Jaguar, Jackson DeVille, which I guess is you guys might know what that is a reference to or not. But, this mascot, it goes Tom Cruise style, zip-lining, parachuting down onto the field before the game. I thought it was going to fall and take out Ryan Wright, the Vikings punter, as he was warming up. Fortunately, that did not occur. But it was a phenomenal showing from the mascot to be able to land on the field. And then later in the game, during one of the celebrations, somehow the mascot got in between the Vikings players and tried to force them to stop celebrating. Anyway, if you can't pick up what I'm putting down, Jacksonville in general, it's not a vacation spot that I would be on the top of list if I was recommending to you. Now, you guys don't come to this podcast for recommendations. I mean, it was interesting. I got to my hotel. There was a man walking around with a cat on his shoulders, asking me what time it was. I mean, there was some stuff going on in Jacksonville to where I knew from the very and including the mascot zip-lining onto the field, whatever. I don't know if zip-lining is the right word, but it was like bungee connected to some cord and found its way on the field. I don't know how that happened. But from the get-go, you knew that something weird was going to happen in the game. It just felt from the time I landed in that city and got in the first Uber that wanted to talk to me about the most serious problems going on in the world. It just didn't. There was something going on. You knew that it was going to play a role in the game, and obviously it did. I mean, it was one of the. I've seen some bad games. I went to the University of Missouri, and I covered 4 years of a lot of suboptimal, subpar football. So I've seen a lot of these. I saw a 9-6 Missouri win over UConn back in the day. I've seen some games. This one was up there. The Vikings obviously were able to move the football and they possessed the football 42 minutes. Which was the most any football team in the NFL has possessed the football all year in a game. And that was obviously tied directly to the strategy Jacksonville wanted to take, which, again, we'll get into. And And it leads me right into my first thought here, which is Sam Darnold. I mean, look, just generally, our producers passed me this number prior to the show. Sam Darnold according to among all starters, he is fifth in big time throw rate, which is a Pro Football Focus statistic that categorizes like really impressive throws down the field and in tight windows and deep down the field. And he's fifth in the NFL in that stat, which proves out what the eye test shows. If he's airing the ball out downfield, he's been really effective doing that at times this year. At the same point, he's third in the NFL in turnover-worthy play rate, which means he is putting the ball in harm's way more than most. And at jives, like he has his turnovers per touch type of statistic hovers around guys like Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson, Joe Flacco, Will Levis. I mean, guys you do not want to be reside alongside in any of these statistical categories. And it just I mean, that's the Sam Darnold experience. You get some of the great, and then you also get some of the absolutely atrocious. And for the Vikings to be able to possess the ball as much as they did, create 28 first downs the way they did against the Jacksonville defense, run the football 43 times, which is more than Kevin O'Connell's ever run the football since he's been the Vikings head coach and play caller. It's a game that the team should have won pretty clearly and did not, obviously, because of the interceptions that Sam Darnold threw. And they're all different. You hear coaches all the time, both publicly and privately, say like everyone is different. They all have a lot of reasons behind them. I mean, Sam Darnold, his first interception looks like he stared down Justin Jefferson on the quick slant route. And Tyson Campbell, the Jaguars cornerback, I mean, I give him credit. He was really physical with Justin Jefferson all day, and he could be because he knew he had help over the top. And, you know, it's probably up for debate how good you think the Vikings receivers did against that physicality, but it seemed to work pretty effectively throughout the course of that game. On that specific play, Sam Darnold stares down Justin Jefferson. He throws the ball. Tyson Campbell tips and it's intercepted. The second interception, I thought that's where you started to get a little bit more of the, you know, for Sam Darnold, the issue that seemed to crop up for me in watching the film the entire day. His feet were just so chattery. Like he would drop back and it was like tap, 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 tap. And he's lifting up in his base. And then he has to get back down to throw the football. And all of that movement creates some inaccuracy. On the second interception, he thought Justin Jefferson was probably going to come forward in the end zone toward him. Instead, Justin Jefferson stayed lateral. And so there was just no chance that was going to be a hookup. And then the third interception, again, it goes back to the lack of accuracy in the corner. Sam Darnold he thinks he can try Justin Jefferson on a corner route towards the pylon. He doesn't get the ball far enough out in front to where only Justin Jefferson can catch the football, and it's intercepted. And I mean, for me, the two again, as I just said, every one of these interceptions has its own story, but the two themes, if you're asking me, that I see when I'm watching the film of Sam Darnold when he is putting the ball in harm's way, it's questionable decision making. And then it's just inaccuracy. And I mean, part of what made the Vikings offense so successful early in the year was Sam Darnold was pretty accurate. And I don't mean to say that he hasn't even been accurate in these last couple of games. But there are instances where he is not, and they seem to pay for it very often. I mean, Jordan Addison made a catch Sunday on the left sideline that was an absurd catch off of what was a terrible throw, an inaccurate throw. Like if you had, I don't know if you guys are on social media and you've seen any of these like pass heat maps and where the ball location is. Usually we can access those after the season, not during the season. But if you were to access them, I guarantee you Sam Darnold's spray chart of where he's putting the ball on his receivers is dispersed all over the place and not as refined as you would have found with Kirk Cousins. By the same point, with Kirk Cousins, you probably don't get the big time throw rate that you've gotten with Sam Darnold. So it is that push and pull. And then, I mean, all of this to me, as I said, the other aspect with Sam Darnold that I think is probably most maybe hardest to change, most just ingrained in how Sam Darnold plays is just the questionable decision making. At times, it feels like he sees space okay and feels where to place the ball. And then there are other times where when there are a lot of defenders in his vision, it feels like he gets antsy. He doesn't really see it that well. There are times where certain receivers pop in his vision and other times where you would think they would and they don't. And that type of thing, I mean, when you talk to people who analyze this stuff, it seems like for me, like the one quality that I feel like if you could, in a quarterback evaluation, find the one answer to something, for me, it would probably be like the player's field vision. And Kevin O'Connell talks about one of the things he prioritizes in quarterbacks is big field vision. Now, what does he mean by that? It's the ability to see where players are moving, what space is open, where he can place the football in 2.5 seconds. I mean, that's the one thing that I wish, and I said this to a buddy over the weekend, like I wish all of us, including myself, could like put on a VR headset and just replicate what it is like in a 2.5 second clip of how fast things are moving. Because I think it would give us all such a good advantage of how hard it is to really operate and play that position. I think that's what makes it the hardest in sports. And the best quarterbacks seem to be able to slow things down within their vision to make the right plays. That's why some of these cognitive tests that have been talked about at nauseum in the media cycle, like S2 and the CJ Stroud test, if you're not familiar, you can look some of that stuff up. It's pretty interesting. There are these tests that some companies have utilized to try to assess processing speed of the quarterback. But that to me, that's why that stuff is interesting, because I truly believe the separator oftentimes is not the arm strength. Yes, the athleticism is critical, so is the arm strength, but it is the ability to mentally process all that you have to on a snap in, snap out basis playing this position. So with Sam, I guess the first thought and the first takeaway is to expect just turnovers to be eliminated at this point. It feels like a pipe dream, and it's unfortunate, but it's also the reality. When you pay a quarterback $10 million on a market where some quarterbacks are paid $60 million or $50 million, the reality is you're giving up something. And what you're giving up is the security that you're probably not going to turn it over as much. So that's the first thought. The second thought, it gets to the Jaguars strategy. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the Jaguars played with more split safety coverage than any opposing defense had played since these things have been tracked since 2018. And so your question is probably, Alec, please explain what split safety coverage is. The best way I know to explain it is just think two high safeties. So two safeties deep and so your follow-up, okay, why would a defense do that? Well, the deeper the safeties are, the more they can keep things in front of them. And the more things deep safeties can keep in front of them, the less likely that offenses generate explosive plays. One of the best ways offenses move the football is explosive plays. Like, you are 6 times more likely to score points on a drive when you have an explosive play on that drive. And so if you're a defense, eliminating that is essentially the priority of playing defense. And Justin Jefferson is as explosive a player as possible. So the Jaguars looked at that game and that matchup, and Ryan Nielsen, who's the Jaguars defensive coordinator, who Kevin O'Connell interviewed to be his defensive coordinator before he eventually hired Brian Flores, they looked at it and they said, you know what? We're going to do everything we can to take out Justin Jefferson. It would be like a basketball defense. Like, say the Wolves are playing the Trailblazers, and the Blazers are like, you know what? We're not letting Ant go for 60. We'll have Jaden McDaniels and we'll have Naz Reid, and those guys beat us. And that's the way they wanted to play. And the way they did that was they played with 2 deep safeties, and they played a lot of double coverage on Justin Jefferson, where the cornerback was pressed up at the line of scrimmage and got really physical with Justin at the line of scrimmage. And this is nothing new in the sense that, you know, you've seen, like, I can remember 2022, the Packers' plan against Justin Jefferson was to put Jair Alexander up on the line of scrimmage, to have him jam Justin Jefferson aggressively, knowing that he had help behind him. And so then you have Jair after the game hooting and hollering about how good of a job he did, when in reality, he knew that he had safety help, whether he succeeded in rerouting Justin or not throughout the course of that entire game. What we haven't seen is a defense like Jacksonville did on Sunday commit to doing that every single play. I mean, essentially every play, it was either two deep safeties with zone coverage underneath or two deep safeties with man coverage underneath. And you know, for Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings offensive staff, they have an interesting and I don't use the word unique because unique is literally singular, but the Vikings have a unique challenge because they study opponents before every game, and they might see that a defense likes to play cover one 60% of the time, and then every time Justin Jefferson, that same defense faces Justin Jefferson, they throw out all of their, typically these defenses throw out all of their prior like what they usually do to stop Justin Jefferson. And so the Vikings then have to kind of create a way to counteract the defensive approach on the fly on every single week. And that's hard, and it takes a lot of in-game adjustments. And this Viking staff has gotten better and better over the course of time at doing that. This was just kind of a different deal. And again, I think the physicality on Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison is something that, you know, it's been one of the ways that feels like it not gets to those guys, but it definitely affects their ability to slither into space and find space the way they often do. And so I would expect future defenses that the Vikings play, whether it's the Titans this weekend, whether it's the Bears next weekend, to adopt a similar approach. Because again, if you can eliminate the explosiveness of this Vikings offense, you make them throw the ball underneath, which you make them go 12 plays down the field, which they can do. They did it throughout the game, but then it takes 12 plays of execution and ball security and all of that to be able to produce. It's hard to duplicate that over and over. And then it also takes running the football effectively. And even though the Vikings ran the ball 43 times for 169 yards in that game, I mean, it wasn't a lot of explosive chunks. It was like a 4-yard gain, a 5-yard gain, sometimes a 7-yard gain, and sometimes a negative 3-yard gain. If I was a defense, I'd rather take my chances forcing Kevin O'Connell in this Vikings offense to run the football and to check it down than to throw it over the middle 15 yards to Justin Jefferson and have him do what he does all over the field. I would take that approach every time. Now, in doing that and in giving the Vikings so much chance for time of possession, you're obviously taking your quarterback off the field, which the Jaguars were more than okay with because their quarterback was Mac Jones. I guess to sum up this thought, it's just I expect to see a lot more of this split safety coverage with a full attention. It's not just split safety, but a targeted attempt at being physical with the receivers in the line of scrimmage, having help for those guys over the top, and really just forcing the Vikings to throw the ball underneath and run the football. That's really the strategy. And I don't see why other teams wouldn't adopt it. And really, to me, it then becomes a question of, A, can Kevin O'Connell stick with the run game, which he did on Sunday, and you give him credit for that. And B, if he does stick with the run game, can the interior of this offensive line be good enough to generate big-time runs? And that's a question mark to me. You know, I have not heard the Vikings coaching staff really lament or critique the interior of this offensive line a ton over the course of this season. And it's kind of anecdotal and in the eye of the beholder, the evaluation of what this interior offensive line has been. You look at some of the PFF grades, it'll tell you that Garrett Bradbury at times has been okay, Blake Berndell at times has been okay, Ed Ingram at times has been okay. But by my eye test, it feels like almost every week this interior, the opposing defensive line is going to give this interior offensive line a test. And again, some of the advanced metrics would say that I'm probably wrong in not having more confidence in the interior of the offensive line. But I watch the film every week. I talk to people around the league, and it just feels like, again, Garrett Bradbury, Ed Ingram, and Blake Brandel. I mean, there's just a lot. There's been a lot of times, whether it's one-off instances or whether it's they miss a certain block that would have sprung an 11-yard run, or they get sideswiped in pass protection and it dooms a drive. And that stuff, for me, it just feels like it's not stable enough to feel overwhelmingly confident that you're just going to be able to run it down the defense's throat. And Kevin O'Connell talks a lot and has all year about play style. And what does he mean by that? I think a lot of that is he wants physicality from the front in the run game. And you can want that, but the reality is it feels like you have to have the right players to do it. And maybe they will prove over the course of these next few weeks, if defenses take this same approach, that they can physically move guys off the ball. But until that happens, I just have to see it, or else I think this is a strategy that totally makes sense against this Vikings offense, because really, when Justin Jefferson is beating you across the field, you don't have much of a chance. But if he's not, then you force this offense that has shown a tendency not to execute on a snap-by-snap basis. You put them in a position to have to do that. And that's where I'd want to live if I was a defense. So that's thought number two. Thought number three, I really hope this Vikings defense is fully healthy once they play the Cardinals or the Falcons, because I don't think they are going to have any problem this upcoming weekend against Will Levis for all sorts of reasons. I mean, one, I don't think the Titans' offensive line is that great. There just has not been much rhythm in that offense as a unit, as a whole, in Brian Callahan's first season as head coach down there. And then the Bears, I don't need to tell any of you guys listening how much a disaster that offense has been. And that is on everybody down there. That is, I know Shane Waldron was let go as offensive coordinator, and I know people are really critiquing Caleb Williams, and some of it is definitely deserving. But the reality is the offensive line down there has been atrocious. Keenan Allen has not been gangbusters. I watched the offensive film that the Bears played last week, and Rome Odunze dropped a couple passes. DJ Moore hasn't looked like really as dynamic as you'd probably expect. So I don't think even though the Vikings in Chicago is probably somehow going to be a close game, because it always is, and I don't need to tell you guys that, I just really want to see this defense with Blake Cashman and all of their pieces against good offenses again, because I am so curious to know if coordinators like Drew Petzing and quarterbacks like Kyler Murray and coordinators like Zach Robinson and quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins will do similar to what the Lions and Rams did, both from a schematic standpoint and just in terms of production against this Vikings defense. Part of me just wants to know, like, and I hate to use this phrase because I don't think it's really reality, but people always say with this Brian Flores defense, you guys have probably thought it, like, has this defense been figured out? Well, I don't know if Will Levis and Caleb Williams are capable right now of figuring out this defense. In fact, I don't really think they are. So I wonder if better offensive minds, better quarterbacks are. And I'm not totally sure that, I mean, this Vikings defense still ranks first in almost every metric. I mean, stopping the run, EPA per play. I mean, they give up some explosive passes, but in general, the takeaways have really balanced things out. And so, this defense has really been the calling card of why this team is 7-2. And so whether it can perform and produce against better competition once they come in the next few weeks, that's going to be really interesting to me. And I just hope to see it. Blake Cashman, I mean, this guy, watching him has just been wildly impressive. And like, I don't know if anybody expected him to be the pass rusher that he's been. From a coverage standpoint, he is so adept at occupying space in the middle. You just like feel his presence out there. So it was good to see him back. And with him, I mean, the Vikings are undefeated. So again, will that continue against offenses like Arizona and Atlanta? At the same time, point number 4 is I don't think this Titans game, if you think this Titans game is going to be different than the Jaguars game, I kind of am curious as to why. Because the Titans defense is very capable and much more highly ranked than the Jaguars were entering last week. I don't need to explain to you the personnel. I mean, you guys know Jeffrey Simmons on the interior. You guys know Harold Landry and Arden Key on the edges. Their linebacker, Jack Gibbons, this guy's come along. They have Quandre Diggs on the back end at safety. They're coordinated by Denard Wilson, I believe, who was in Baltimore, so has an interesting system. I have a hard time trying to figure out, unless the Vikings can eliminate the turnovers entirely and put together an even more kind of conducive plan to counteracting some of the split safety stuff. I don't know why this wouldn't be a very similar looking game where the opposing quarterback, Will Levis, really can't create much against Brian Flores' defense. And then offensively, the Vikings are probably, it's not going to be easy sledding. They're going to have a really good game plan. Sam Darnold's going to have to take care of the football, and the run game is going to have to be good, which is going to be tougher this week than I think it was last week. And so it's not going to be an easy game. The spread is similar. Honestly, I believe the Vikings are favored by like 6 points or so. The game's in Nashville. I've heard 7 Vikings coaches say this week that it's really hard to win on the road, and that's the case. But yeah, to expect anything but kind of a grimy game to me would just be hope that the offense pieces it together. And I got to be honest, like for weeks, and honestly, this has been the case multiple times through 3 years. You've heard guys like Justin Jefferson say, like, we just want to play a complete game. Kevin O'Connell has said that multiple times. We want to play a complete game where we're throwing the football efficiently, where where we have explosive plays, where we run the football well. But it just hasn't happened so often, and it's hard in this league. But until we see it, I think to expect just some grand and massively different performance to me would probably be a little overstating it. 5th point is kind of out of left field, but I felt like, we're halfway into the season. The Vikings are 7-2. They have aspirations. There's stuff they want to accomplish, and it's going to be very interesting to see what they can over the back half of this season and then in the playoffs. But Dane Brugler, who's the Athletics draft expert, put out his top 50 players on Tuesday, November 12th, and I found it interesting that widely, if you talk to people in the league right now, they will tell you that this isn't the most like jam-packed, talent-rich draft they've ever seen. It's just kind of a known aspect of this draft. You talk to people in the league, but Dane Brugler had multiple in his top 50, had multiple interior defensive linemen, interior offensive linemen, and cornerbacks. So it sets up pretty solidly for where the Vikings are probably going to be picking, probably 20-ish, and then just in general with what they need. Guys, interior defensive linemen, I would keep an eye on names like Ole Miss's Walter Nolan, Oregon's Derek Harmon, 2 interior defensive linemen. At cornerback, there's a bunch of guys. Sharon Revel, East Carolina guy, had an injury, but he's a guy I would watch. And then Arizona has an interior offensive lineman that's intriguing. So names that will make sense for this Vikings roster come next April at the top. And then it's also possible that the Vikings could even turn whatever pick they have, whether it's 22, 23, 24, whatever it is, into 2 early second-round picks and try to recoup more talent that way. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting come next April to see what position they prioritize, and how that shakes out. And I know I'm getting way ahead there, but I just wanted you guys to know that there are players within the positions that the Vikings probably need that do make sense. Wasn't a point, but it's something I probably should have covered with Sam Darnold. I've thought a lot about this week. Like, had JJ McCarthy not torn his meniscus, would he be playing right now? I think it's a fair question to ask. I wouldn't be shocked if the answer to that was yes. I mean, I also wouldn't be shocked if the answer to that was no. And so I hope that's in the full extent of if people take that comment for what it's worth. Like, I mean, Sam Darnold, once J.J. McCarthy suffered his injury, I mean, he was going to be the guy. I've seen a lot of fans on social media come at me and they're like, put Nick Mullins in. Put Nick Mullins in. You guys watch the same Nick Mullins. I know this because you guys are smart fans who pay attention to stuff. You guys watch the same Nick Mullins that I watch. His turnover frequency is just as high, if not higher, than Sam Darnold, and he does not have the arm strength that Sam Darnold has. He does not have the arm talent that Sam Darnold has, and so I mean that idea doesn't make much sense. Brett Ripien. I like the film of Brett in Chicago in the preseason, but it was the film of Brett in Chicago in the preseason. So I mean, this is once J.J. McCarthy tore his meniscus and was sidelined for the season, this was going to be Sam Darnold's year to prove that he was worth being a starter for years to come. And there have been points throughout this year where you see why it's worth believing that in that. And then there are the last two games and some of these throws that make you wonder if it is. I mean, if being a backup is probably the best for him moving forward. I mean, there's reason for me to think to see both of those. And then, I mean, as it relates to J.J. McCarthy, you know, Wes Phillips, the Vikings offensive coordinator, was asked about J.J. on Tuesday morning. And he's like, you know, it's been cool to see J.J. get to soak all of this year up. And that's soak up the meetings in terms of analyzing how Sam played and some of the after action stuff. That's soaking up the play intent with Kevin O'Connell calling plays into the huddle. I mean, I am the biggest fan in this league with the way quarterbacks have been developed that patience is just absolutely essential for certain guys. Not all guys. Sometimes maybe a CJ Stroud doesn't need patience. Maybe Jaden McDaniels, these guys are developed enough to be thrown in the fire immediately, but they are years older than JJ. And so, you know, if I just think it's important to say that 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, if JJ McCarthy is the quarterback in Minnesota that I think all of you guys listening to this and watching this want him to be, one of the things you will look back on in terms of how he got to that place will be this year. That was obviously unfortunate, and that obviously might have prevented him from playing right now, but that allowed him to just do something that very rarely quarterbacks drafted in this league are able to do, and that is sit, watch, absorb, learn, grow, develop, garner the respect of people internally, all of that. Like, I genuinely believe that if his art goes the way you guys want it to, so a critical piece to that puzzle will have been just watching this offense, this coaching staff, this quarterback navigate what they've navigated throughout this season. So I just wanted to say that to close out, and I appreciate you guys listening. I'll go through the five thoughts really quickly, just once again. Sam Darnold, 5th in big-time throw rate, 3rd in turnover-worthy play rate. That is the Sam Darnold experience. Expecting that to change at this point would be faulty. And it, to me, it just underscores, again, the importance of a quarterback's big field vision and their ability to make decisions in split-second time. Some get the best at it, seem to have that ability. Those who struggle, it feels like that is what's lacking. The second thought, split safety coverage with physicality and press on Justin Jefferson. I'd expect more of it. And until the Vikings run game can just run and mow over defenses to the point at which they have to bring a safety down into the box and can no longer play that way, I think you'll continue to see more of it. But I also think the Vikings will be better at counteracting that stuff, having seen as much as they saw Sunday. The third point, I really want to see this Vikings defense fully healthy with Blake Cashman against good offenses like Arizona and Atlanta, because I want to know how much of those Rams line games were blips, had something to do with not having Blake Cashman, or genuinely was a case of offenses and good offensive coordinators and quarterbacks finding ways to beat Brian Flores. The fourth thought, the Titans, this could be a game that is very similar to last Sunday against Jacksonville. Their defense is arguably better. Their coaching is pretty good. Offensively, they can probably run the football better, but Will Levis will probably turn the football over. And so the Vikings should still be the favorite that they are and really need to win this game. Because it would just be a terrible loss if they didn't. And the fifth thought, I think, is as we look way ahead with the draft, things seem to align in terms of what the Vikings will be looking for and what's going to be available to them. And I guess really the hope is, specifically with evaluating defense, that the continuity that this Viking staff had in terms of the free agency signees that they made exists this upcoming cycle and allows them to kind of identify the types of players that would fit in this system, because I think that is a major advantage in this league with so many coaching changes all the time. So those are the 5 thoughts. Appreciate you guys listening. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on Apple, Spotify, you can rate and review us over there. I think you can subscribe there and you'll get all the future episodes. But really enjoyed doing this. I hope you guys got a lot out of this episode, including Jacksonville being the best thing about Jacksonville. And it's nothing against Jacksonville, but it's everything against Jacksonville. I don't think the Vikings play there for like 8 more years. And I didn't leave that city feeling like I was going to be distraught in that I might not have to go back there for a long time. And it's nothing against Jacksonville. I'm sure I missed certain aspects of it that I would enjoy. But I did miss them because I just didn't have much other than watching the mascot Tom Cruise his way onto the field and almost collide into Ryan Wright. There it goes. That's the Alec Lewis Show. I appreciate you guys listening to this. We will be back later this week and try to have another guest for you guys that I get the audio right on, because I think you will enjoy that. And stay locked in to the stories over at theathletic.com. A lot more coming to you guys this week and the weeks to come. And for that, that'll do it for the Alec Lewis Show. Thank you guys for listening. See you guys later this week.